Welcome to the Digital Remodeler Podcast. I'm so glad you've chosen to join me today. And with me is Bart Henderson, Esquire. Bart, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to a nice conversation today.
Fantastic. All right. So, Bart, go ahead and start with your journey. You've got an interesting journey, interesting background. You're kind of a Renaissance man, really. You've done a lot of things. So, tell us a little bit of your story, and then we'll get into some of the nuggets that we're going to extract from your story.
Man, I don't want to bore anyone to death with the full story, so I'll keep it quick. Which is by trade, I'm an attorney, and I went to school to become an attorney. I'm barred in New York and New Jersey. I'm licensed, uh, but from an early age, I always wanted to chase freedom more than I wanted to chase money. It's just something, I don't know if it was ingrained in me or where I learned it, but I always was chasing freedom more than money. And so I knew when I was in law school that I didn't want to traditionally practice law. So I was a JD MBA, and I said, well, what can I do? Well, rewind a little bit. I almost wasn't going to go to law school. I was working in the US Senate as an intern at the time, and I said, uh, okay, I'm only going to go to law school if I can make money while I'm doing it. Like, I'm not going to just burn a couple of years of life, right? I feel like so many times, I'm sure you know people or friends or I know a friend's kids and things like that who go to college and they just like burn 4 years, you know? And so I had just done my college career and I said, I feel like there's nothing uh, to really say I built during college. So I'm only going to go to law school if I can build something while I'm doing it. And so I ended up starting a t-shirt printing business. So, my wife remembers fondly the nights of she would come home and I'd be late at night printing t-shirts in our kitchen, during law school. So I'd print t-shirts till 11:30 at night. And I'd wake up and me and my study group would meet at like 4:30 or 5 a.m. in the morning. And we would just go through the whole day and do it all over again. So, um, started printing and then ended up getting a bunch of contracts. And by the time I was, graduated law school, I was pretty much making as much money as an attorney would have made through printing t-shirts, funny enough. So we grew it and grew it. And then my wife took over. And then we were named, one of Inc. 5000's top 10 fastest growing privately owned companies in the nation. So everything kind of just goes back from there. But I can't even tell you how many people told me time and time again, they're like, you're crazy. You're an attorney and you're printing t-shirts. Like, what are you doing here? Everybody from family members to friends to everything. And so that lit an entrepreneurial spirit. I know I said I'm going to keep this short, but then we went on to, with that foundation to invest in tons of other things, different companies, landscaping, mining industry, just all sorts of different fun and cool, interesting products. So definitely an entrepreneur at heart and just love interacting with people, having fun. Our biggest, most passionate thing that I do now is called Agora Guild, which is a men's network. And all we focus on is having people elevate in all areas of life: faith, family, fitness, finance, whatever it might be, different areas. So that's my my short background.
That's perfect. So let's start with and it's the starting point that so many entrepreneurs start off at. They get the passion, it starts to ignite within them, and so they start off on this solo venture. So for you, it was t-shirts. For others, it might be a carpenter. For others, they're a solo insurance agent. Could be any number of things, but they start off doing the work themselves and all of a sudden it catches on and lo and behold they've got a business.
Yeah.
And so with that comes some shifts that have to take place. So in your own experience, like, what are some of the mindset shifts that you think are essential to avoid burnout and really chaos? Like you described, I think you said in your kitchen printing t-shirts, plus you've got your wife and if you've got a family, what do you do? What are some of those shifts that have to take place as it goes from you to being a viable business.
Yeah, well, it's you've heard it a bunch of times, which is an entrepreneur is someone who will work 80 hours a week so they don't have to work 40, right? Um, and so I can't tell you how many of my friends and how many people I know and work with who that's the case. Like, you're an entrepreneur and you're really just working harder than you would have worked if you're working for somebody else making the same or less amount of money. And so um, freedom was definitely always a piece for me. Like, you need, I want to have the ability on a Tuesday or Thursday or Wednesday or whatever to just go do whatever you want to do with your family. And so the shift is like, hey, why am I doing this? Being purposeful, and then understanding what systems you can put in place. I think that in our culture, up until very recently with AI, which has really changed the discussion. Up until recently, it's so funny. People always ask the question, how many employees do you have? That's like the number one question people go to as far as trying to understand like how big your business is. And I've always thought that's so backwards because we were able to build to a multi-million-dollar business with 7 employees because we implemented tons and tons of different systems, right? Whether it's technology systems or CRMs or marketing systems or whatever. And it's just so funny to me because like a lot of people you could hire and hire and hire and hire. Like my company could have had 25 employees, right? And to me, that's just, God, 17 more headaches, like, right? And so to me, it's about asking yourself, like, how do I grow this and make sure it doesn't become a headache business? Like, that's really the biggest lesson that I've learned over the past couple of years because I've had businesses which became headache businesses. And so, headache businesses, like, it's a business that makes money. Don't get me wrong, you can make money, but you are always going to have headaches while making that money. And I always thought, just for some reason, because of the businesses I was in, that like all businesses are headaches. That's not true. Some businesses are much more so headache businesses than other businesses. My landscaping company, headache business. My men's network, passion, fun business, don't get me wrong, there's differences and there's difficulties in all businesses, but just trying to grow and keeping in mind minimizing problems and headaches. And I think one of the ways you do that is implement systems and technology rather than people. And it's so funny because now AI, this is all the rage now. But 5 or 10 years ago, when people would ask me, they'd be like, "Oh, I thought your company would have 25." It's like, why would I do that if we're growing and we don't need to add all these people, Um,
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you this, Bart. Like, how do you implement those systems without slowing down the pace? So
mm,
that's always a concern. Like, how do I not lose momentum, but
yeah,
I've got to systematize because things are getting away from me and I'm dropping things and I'm forgetting stuff and I'm not delivering things the way I need to. So what's kind of your secret, or what have you found works best to get things, processes in place, systems in place, but not lose that momentum?
yeah. That's tough, right? I've seen so many systems implemented, not just in my own company, but even companies I consult for. Um, and that seems to be one of the biggest challenges. Look, you have a workforce of 150 people and you want to change a new CRM. I mean, you'll never hear more complaining than in that. And so what I think most companies do wrong is they say, hey, by the way, here's a new CRM you got to use and learn. It's mandatory now, right? What I think the best companies do is they say, this is a CRM you're using now. Here's the new CRM. Look, we're going to save you like 15% of the time in your day and make your job easier by doing this. And here's how we make it easier, right? Like actually showing, not just saying it, but showing in the CRM, let's say, or the marketing funnel or whatever, the steps that are going to be taken that make it easier. So I think there's a human element in implementation, which is always a challenge. I mean, absolutely always a challenge. But I think when you show people that it's effective, that's usually the best way to vitiate their, oh, I got to learn a new thing and sign into another thing and enter more data and whatever. It's about showing them, that it works. Has been most effective, but it's still new things can slow you down. There's no doubt. And so I don't think I have a magic bullet other than integrating and involving people in the decision. If you involve people in the decision, they have some ownership in it. They want it to work rather than just thrusting something upon someone.
Absolutely. So here's an interesting question for you. So, as an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
um, there's a kind of an Achilles heel, I think most of us have.
Mhm.
We're really passionate about what we start because it's our baby.
Right.
Um, and we tend to be oftentimes a little OCD perfectionist.
Yeah.
So how do you know when it's time to let go of some of those tasks that
Mhm.
nobody does it as good as you?
Yeah.
How do you get over that fear? How do you decide it's time to turn that sucker loose?
Yeah, so always hard, still hard for certain things every day to do things like this. But I kind of go back to my wife said something to me once, and it was just like a light bulb moment, right? And so we had a cleaning crew come into our house, on like a weekly basis, and she said, oh, can you, we're having a party. Can you clean the bathroom? You do it better than anybody else. Like she said it to me, and I was like, wait, what? Like, just because I do it better than anybody else doesn't mean I should do it. And so, like, yeah, I do. I do. If I'm gonna put my mind to cleaning the bathroom, I'm gonna clean the bathroom better than anybody else. Like, you know what I mean? If I'm gonna take the garbage out, I'm gonna take it out and wipe around the garbage, whatever. I'm gonna do it better than anybody else. But just because I do it better than anybody else, that was a light bulb moment for me. I was like, oh my gosh, that's the problem with work. I have to stop doing things just because I can do them better than everybody else, right? Um, and so that's what I think back to. Funny enough, whether it's a migration or a sales outreach or a call or a presentation, I always go, I can't do it just because I can do it better than everybody else. The same way that we talked about that bathroom, way back when. And so I like to implement by understanding, I mean, everyone talks about the 80-20 rule. I mean, if 80% of it can be done right and 20% doesn't go the way I want, then that's kind of an acceptable measure, of course. Um, but also we put systems into place. So, when we first started hiring people, I was getting calls and emails and just like pestered all the time. And I said, like, I got to do something where I'm not getting asked all the time. So, you know what? Anything that's not going to cost the company more than $500, make the decision. Like, that's for anybody at this level, make the decision. And certain people in the managerial level, if it's going to cost less than $2,000, whatever, make the decision. Um, so putting in systems where letting people have the ability to have some freedom to make the decision was also a key in that respect, I think.
That's good. And you talked about hiring. So, as you're growing, you're starting to bring people in. Obviously, you want to create some culture.
Mhm.
How do you define what your culture is going to be? What's the process that you've gone through to establish the culture that you want in your organization?
Yeah, culture is very it is it's so important and so tough to correctly instill. Um, but it starts in the way that you act and treat everybody in the company, obviously. And so, you know, I've been in meetings where someone had a bad day, right? Bad day, and they kind of go off the cuff and they're a little more harsh to someone than previously. And so that is completely unacceptable in my eyes. And so everybody else said, no, well, they had a bad day, give them a break. Well, I don't care. We're all adults. Some people lose somebody in their family go to a funeral and come into work the next day. Doesn't mean they can scream and yell at everybody, right? It's not acceptable with a bad day. So the first mentality is like trust and respect, no matter what your day's going like. Like, I don't care. Trust and respect. And then the thing that dictates any culture of any of my companies more than anything would essentially be a principle from Ray Dalio, and it's just extreme honesty, essentially, right? And so being completely open and honest with one another to the point where I'm going to have to tell you how I feel, and I expect the same thing back, right? And so in a lot of other companies, people will say things and they'll whisper things and they'll gossip and whatever. Any company I work with, even outside of my company, I tell them, hey, I expect extreme honesty back and forth. And that means if I'm not performing the way you want me to perform, you need to let me know, because it's not okay for 3 months to go by and you say, hey, sorry, things weren't going well. I need to know right then and there what's going wrong and how I can fix it. And I'm also going to do the same. And so the difference in any company I've been a part of or that I'm building has always been, oh, okay, John, I have an issue with the fact that you're not getting back to emails in 48 hours. Whereas other people say, oh, John never gets back, and they start, gossiping and this and that. With us, it's very straightforward. You need to be open and honest and just say, hey, personally, John, like, you should really start getting back to people within 24 hours or 48 hours or whatever it might be. And so that open honesty and that open communication, it just allows a different level of trust to be built between people, and it prevents issues that otherwise would come up,
Yeah, and it sounds, Bart, like that really builds in some accountability to the culture as well. That everybody knows that because there's honesty, um, you're going to get called on your junk.
That's
So that's
that's exactly it. It's like, oh, great, maybe you're not performing here. Like, what can we do to help you? And that's also a key too. It's not like, oh, you're not doing well, get better. How can the team help you?
that's good. That's good. So, a lot of companies hit a stage where they get busy
Mhm.
and they almost get into a trap where they're too busy to take on more work.
Mm.
So how do they break through that ceiling? What's been your experience? How do you get through that ceiling and get to the next level where you're kind of topped out?
Yep.
Um, how do you get beyond that?
So, two things. One, it's always important to work on the business rather than in the business. I mean, I talk about that and try to practice that all the time, working on the business rather than in the business. And there's literally time. I have on my calendar over here. You can't see. It's called DWD, deep work days, set aside to make sure that whole day is on the business, rather than in the business. Now, on top of that, there's other things that can be implemented. So specifically, I think one of the most underrated things in business is partnerships. And I can't for the life of me understand why more companies don't partner and pool resources and work together. Um, I mean, I'm a voracious networker. I've been networking. That's how we grew our whole business, right? And so you meet people, and when there's synergies, why not explore that? And as a result, if we're growing and we need help in printing, why wouldn't you, if you can still do quality control checks and everything, subcontract a large printing job to keep things flowing correctly? Why wouldn't you work with a, now I recognize there's trust issues in, are they going to take my client and this and that? If people are moral, you don't have to worry about that. And so as we grew, we partnered with so many companies to do so many different specialties and so many different things. So as we grew, I didn't look to go, oh, we got to get another $800,000 in the door so we can get this printer that can print out this much or anything. I said, okay, who's got one of these printers in this area? Who can I reach out to? Who can I partner with? Now they're winning. I'm winning. We have a great relationship and we can refer business back and forth to each other where it works for us. So really partnerships was a big piece of growth without bottlenecking, you know?
Oh, I think it's valuable. One of the things that I often tell people is that often we think we're grinding on how and how am I going to do this and what's the answer, and most of the time the answer is who.
Yes,
Um, so we're asking the wrong question.
that's exactly.
Uh,
Who not
so
how.
it's the who.
Yeah,
So here you brought up something important as well. As your company is growing, your business is growing, your leadership's going to have to change because you're not going to be on the front lines anymore. You're not going to be the person making the T-shirt.
totally.
You're going to be the leader, leading in different capacity. So as you've distanced from the front lines as a leader, what have you done to help you grow as a leader the further you've gotten away from the front lines of the business?
Hmm. Um, Great question. Yeah, really good. So, one of the things that's core in what I do is continuous growth. Like, I mean, just growth all the time. So, in our men's network, Agora Guild, we go over like leadership growth and all sorts of growth on a weekly basis. So, literally on a weekly basis, um, we go over all sorts of topics. We talk about things like testosterone and insulin, and then we also talk about things like how to be a better boss, how to be a better husband, how to be a better father. Um, we'll talk about religion. I mean, we talk about everything. And so being surrounded by a group of men like that is what's constantly pushing you to think and do better. You hear about a guy who goes and takes his entire crew out. Like one of the things we do is play paintball, right? Like once a year. It's a fun thing, one of the events we do. Um, saying, okay, how can I create a fun experience for the group to go take them all out to paintball or something like that. And so um, really the answer is by being surrounded by other men who are constantly challenging you to rise to the next level, hearing what they're doing, seeing what they're doing, and being exposed to like self-betterment. Because once you become better, you're like, okay, how do I bring this to my team and help them get better and help them make more money? And it almost becomes like it's not even about the money or the company. It's like, oh, I've learned this new skill. I can teach this to them. This can really help them in their life. Like, oh, well, also it's going to help sales in our company, but this is just going to help that person grow. So, like putting a premium on growth. And I think that's also a way to keep people, right? If you mentor and help grow, then people don't want to leave,
Hmm.
right? Versus just giving them more money or whatever it might be.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's one of the golden nuggets there. It's certainly been my experience as well. So I'm glad you shared that.
Mhm.
Let's talk through this. As entrepreneurs, when you ask people why'd you become a business owner, and you hit this earlier. We work 80 hours a week to save ourselves from working 40 hours from somebody else. But the number one answer is time freedom. I want freedom to go and do when I want to, with who I want to. I want to spend time with my family. I want to travel. Blah 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 blah. We all have the general same answer.
Right.
But what we're all after is to build a business that runs without us.
Yeah.
And so when a business starts to grow, when it starts to really expand, how do you develop those systems and leadership layers that ensure that quality stays high, consistency stays constant, but gives you that freedom to run the business without you always being there?
Hmm. So someone I've worked with for years always says like pay people more than they're worth. Uh, and if you're paying people well and treating them well, then they're going to give it more care. So I think that that's a piece of it. That's one piece of the puzzle. Um, there's there's many pieces. Giving people ownership or equity, if it's possible, like actual ownership in certain companies and things like that. That's a huge incentive, right? because now you're not an employee. Now you're building the company. In fact, I have one friend who's very successful. He has about 7 successful companies that he's already sold a number of them. And he said the best thing you could do is find a phenomenal partner, give them 50% of the company, and let them run the whole company. I said, 50% is a lot. Like, what are you talking about? You know? He said, that's what I do. It's my model. That's why I have so many successful companies. I said, really? So giving, maybe having some kind of equity pool, maybe it's just 10%, but you have an equity pool for the employees to earn in and things like that. I think that that's absolutely critical, because at some point everybody goes, wait a second, that person, the owner's out golfing or on their boat, and I'm working my butt off in here. How's that fair? I'm just making him rich. So if there's that equity piece, right, where they're actually making themselves rich too, then it's a different thought, a different conversation. So I'm a big fan, and I don't know why more companies and more people are so afraid to give away equity. It doesn't have to be a big amount. Like, it doesn't, like, just giving anybody any skin in the game is valuable, and it means a lot to people. So I think that kind of giving away equity is really important too.
Perfect. Now let's tap into your attorney side here for a minute. So as you scale and as you grow, what are some of the risks that become more dangerous to you as a
Yeah.
business owner? And then what can you do to manage those things effectively, especially when we talk about, financial, legal, and brand risk? What are some of the things you need to be thinking about?
Yeah. So different sectors, of course, are very different, right? So if you're in construction, you have a lot more risks than, let's say, me as running a promo company, right? Or my landscaping company, it's a lot more likely they're gonna hit a rock that nails a glass on a Ferrari than a t-shirt in my promo company causing a problem. So there's definitely different risks for different companies. Knowing that profile and ensuring, correctly for that is really key. Putting systems in place in companies where there are higher risks are worth their weight in gold. I mean, I can't even explain it. Just as an example, there's very simple things that maybe you or I wouldn't do, but that a new employee would, right? So, like, if I saw a Ferrari in a driveway, I wouldn't go weed whack right up next to it. Like, I just wouldn't, because I'm like, wow, what if I hit a rock? If and so putting parameters in place, like, hey, if there is a car within X amount of feet, don't weed whack there, even though you're supposed to weed whack usually. So, like, putting a very simple layer of parameters around everything, right? Can really help to limit liability in that sense, Then going, deeper into legal, and again, I'm not giving any legal advice here, right? Just giving my opinion in regards to different companies. Having the correct corporate structure. So, like, I see general contractors who are just like they don't even have a company structure, and that is very scary, right? Because if anything happens, someone can go right after you and your family. I mean, to get the correct corporate structure, whatever it might be for your company, whether it's an LLC or an S corp or whatever it might be for your particular company, of course, make sure you have the correct corporate structure in place, but then also make sure you have the correct accounting in place, and that you have the right things in place so that people can't pierce the corporate veil, and so that you're adequately protecting people. But I think I really think it comes down to the procedures, like preventing the things from happening to begin with. Because, I mean, the things that you would think that you would take for granted from a safety standpoint, somebody else doesn't. And so you just need to have lessons and teaching people and videos. Like at our landscaping company, we had a series of lessons teaching people how to weed whack, which way to weed whack, which way to walk around, which way to go. And it's like, it's like most landscapers know how to weed. Like that would be something they'd sit through this and go, oh my gosh, right? But there's something you can learn from that. And so putting those procedures in place um, is really important, I think.
And for our listeners, if you want to catch that video series, we'll put a link to that later, right? How to weed whack.
That's right.
Just for your entertainment, your
Yeah.
sleepless nights.
Yeah.
Uh, so anyway, let's kind of land the plane, on this, kind of the end game.
Mhm.
You grow the business, and there's this legacy component. What's the end game? What's the purpose? Where are you headed with your company, your business? You've built businesses, obviously, Bart, in different industries. What should you be thinking about as that business owner when we talk about continuity? And where I'm kind of going with this is, I think a lot of times an owner starts a business and they haven't really thought through, am I growing this to sell it?
Right.
Am I growing through this to pass it on to my children?
Mhm.
What am I actually? What am I going to do with this thing
Right.
in the end? What's my purpose here? If you could speak to that, how would you guide another entrepreneur in that thought process?
Yeah. So um, we have different, we have cycles in life, right? They go up and down, and there's different cycles. I mean, as an example, the cycle where you're just out of college, going out with friends and enjoying the city or whatever is very different from the cycle where you have two kids and two young toddlers, right? And that's also very different from the cycle when your kids are all out of the house away at college and then you're back by yourself, or it's different from the cycle where you retire. It's all different cycles. And so I can only really answer this from my current frame, of what I think and believe. And so my cycle right now, the end game is to spend as much time with my family as absolutely possible. So that's my goal right now, is what can I be doing to spend as much time with my family as possible, right? Um, so right now, that's kind of what it is. Will it eventually, when the kids are grown and out, change to um, how can I make other people as wealthy as possible? How can I help other people grow as much as possible? Yes, and that's what we're doing now in Agora Guild, which I love so much. Um, so it's going to be it's about helping other people more than anything. Because it feels good to help other people. Like it's really pretty simple. So it's about spending time helping other people, um, and growing the business, doing something I love. That's not a headache business. That's why I love Agora Guild so much. I mean, it's like it's a group of men who push each other to be better, who challenge each other. Like it's the most fun thing I do, and it's also a business. It's like I couldn't ask for more. So um, the end game with the Agora Guild is a grand vision. I really see that growing year after year into a lifestyle, full lifestyle brand across the board, from healthy products through to potential schooling. And I mean, really just next level. But that's the long 10, 20, 30 year vision.
Excellent. And then just a final question for you, kind of looking back at your journey so far. What's one thing you wish somebody would have told you?
Mm. It's actually that thing that we talked about before, which my wife kind of brought to my attention, which is don't do something just because you're good at it. Do something because you like it and you're good at it. And so uh, if it's something you like to do and you're good at it, great. But don't necessarily just do it just because you're good at it, because you can be good at a lot of different things that aren't necessarily worthy of you spending time on them, depending on the activity.
Mm, good advice. So, Bart, if somebody wants to learn more about you, they want to connect with you, where should they do that?
Cool. So on Instagram, there's Bart Henderson ESQ is my Instagram name. I have barthenderson.com. That's BartHenderson.com for speaking gigs and things of that nature, MC. And then Agora Guild is really what we're doing right now. We're really growing Agora Guild. We have about 70 men across the nation right now. We have men all over, from Hawaii to Colorado to New Jersey to Miami. All over the US right now. We do a 30-day free trial for anybody. That's agoraguild.com, AGORAGUILD.com. And then there's Agora Guild, the Instagram, AGORAGUILD. So love to meet other like-minded men who want to push each other. Anybody who wants to be surrounded by guys who want to continue to get more in life.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for being my guest today. And to our audience, thanks for tuning in. And we look forward to having you on the next episode of the Digital Remodeler Podcast.
Thanks for some great questions, Carl.
You're welcome.